Hey friends, my name's Stevie Taylor. Welcome to the Gig Life Podcast. My guest today is Terepai Richmond, arguably Australia's most toured and recorded drummer. D.I.G, SWOOP, the Whitlams, Savage Garden, Missy Higgins, Soul Decision, Pete Murray, Guy Sebastian, and more than he can even remember. We caught up while he was in town for a few days and had a good long chat about his family, his career, his move away from Sydney to Byron Bay, the Australian recording scene, touring, groove, and just a whole bunch of stuff really. Sit back and enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, Terepai Richmond. Cheers. I think we're rolling. Terepai Richmond, welcome to the Gig Life Podcast.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
No worries, man. We're here in your apartment in, or your hotel room, should I say, in Cronulla.
Yep.
You're in town for a bit.
Yep.
What did you get up to last night?
I just came into town yesterday early for an early sound check for an early gig in Sydney.
Yep.
It's one of the pretty flash gig actually, just a private do with the Whitlams playing at a birthday party actually for some newly self-made millionaires.
Yeah. Awesome.
From some software development company.
Yep.
And they, I think the wife of the boss of the company was a huge Whitlams fan when she was young.
Yeah.
And she asked if we could do her birthday, play at her birthday. So it's a pretty flash do.
Yep.
And that was it for yesterday. So I flew down, did that. Tonight doing a little trio gig with a couple of Mean Brothers.
Heavy Cats, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's Adam Ventura and Daniel March. And then tomorrow, I think I've got, I'm here for about 5 days. I've got something every day.
Yep.
And then on the road with the Whitlams on Wednesday.
Yep.
Just heading out for a couple of weeks. Just
So that's the 25-year anniversary tour, is that right?
well, it's an extension of it. We actually
Okay.
finished that tour earlier in the year, but this is just a bit of an add-on that came late. It was based around the Queenscliff Music Festival in just south of Melbourne.
Yep.
We got that gig offer and then just put a few other shows on around it.
Sorry, just checking my mic level, don't mind me. Check. That's a good. Cut that.
Oh, good.
Professional as.
Yeah.
No. Sorry.
Yeah, so we got the Queenscliff Music Festival and then just put a few other shows around that to, I guess, work out the cobwebs before we hit the festival stage.
Yep.
We've got a couple in Milton coming up, and then this might be all past tense by the time you put this on.
No,
air.
I think it'll be out this week.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, a couple of Milton shows, and then Blue Mountains, Narrabeen,
Yep.
Port Macquarie, I think, and then down to sort of a couple of regional Victoria shows. And,
Yep.
and that's it for the Whitlams for this year, I think.
Are you guys spread out all over Australia?
Well, we all used to live in Sydney.
Yep.
Jack Housden, I don't know if you know him. He's the guitarist in the Whitlams, but he's also the guitarist in many other bands. He's a great, one of the best in the country, at doing his thing.
Yep.
He's a real fan of the 60s, anything to do with the 60s, and he's just great. He's a great guy and a great player and a good vibe on stage. And anyway, he also lives in the Sutherland Shire.
Okay.
And when I used to live here, there was two of us in the Shire, and then Warwick, the bass player, and Tim Friedman were both living in Newtown. So there was 2 Newtown cats and 2 Cronulla cats. And then Warwick moved to the Shire. So there's 3 Cronulla cats and and 1 Tim still living in Newtown.
Okay.
And then I moved out. I live up in Byron these days.
Okay.
Up in the hills up there, a little farm to get away from the big smoke.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's go there a little bit, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll roll it back, if we can.
Yeah.
So you're born in Sydney?
Yeah, I was born here. Yep. In the early 70s.
Yep.
And yeah, grew up in my parents' band. Well, both of them were sort of entertainers and caterers, and we had this business called Polynesian Parties. And when I was pretty sure I was about 6 years old, I used to get dragged to all the gigs and got sat on the front of the stage with a set of bongos when I was 6. That's kind of my earliest memories, and I have photos from those days of me sitting there with a little A around my neck and a set of bongos. And then my dad used to own all the backline gear, so there's this. I think I was about a year on from then. When I was about 7, I remember our drummer didn't show up once, and everyone was saying, "Oh, well, you're just gonna have to play drums tonight." And I'd never played the drums before, but that was it. I was on the kit, and my uncles used to be the drummer in a band called D.I.G.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
it's one of my favourite bands from New Zealand. Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So, and he was playing guitar in my parents' band.
Right.
So I got thrown on the kit, but he, basically gave me a crash course in not crashing that night on the kit. I think I can't remember, but he would have shown me a super basic groove, and that would have been it for the whole night, I reckon. Yeah. So just across the board for all the different styles, because the band played sort of old timers style, Latin, disco, country, island music, bit of rock and roll, bit of funk. But with one drum beat for the whole time. And anyway, apparently it was the best it had ever sounded, and so I got the gig after that at 7. So I was the new drummer in the band from that age onwards, and just had as time progressed, just had a few, not really lessons, just got told, shown different things.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was there formal training?
There was a little bit across the years, but those early years I was just bashing stuff really, and keep my uncle kind of keeping me in check, that it wasn't, for him it was more, they were very musical. It was about playing the music, not playing the drums really.
Gotcha.
And I think a lot of guys forget that these days. It's a real lesson that kids, just some people miss out on. They can do all the fancy stuff, all the flashy stuff.
Can't play 2 and 4.
Can't play to put bread and butter on the table.
Exactly right.
And it's not uncommon. And not just it's a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
It's lots of people that don't get the opportunity to play with other people playing real music, and that's essentially what we're doing it for. And that was kind of a big lesson that I didn't know that I was learning
at the time.
That learnt a lot, a long time later. That was the best formal training I could never have. Was to basically learn how to play songs, how to play music, how to play with other people, how to learn that the focus shouldn't be about you. It's not. Well, in fact, it's not about you. And the more that it became about you, the more you were probably doing the wrong thing.
Gotcha.
Even to this date, I feel the same way. If people come up and say, "Oh man, your drumming was amazing tonight," I'm always like, "Oh damn, I must have overplayed or something."
Oh really? Wow.
But if they come up and they say, "Oh, the music was great."
Yeah,
if
right.
they say the music was great, I'm like, "Yes, I did my job," you know.
Yeah, cool.
Or if they don't say anything, but the dance floor's full,
That's enough.
they go home with smiles on their face. That's it. That's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best for me. And yeah, as I said, you know, I guess growing up, not really learning how to play the drums for so many years, but doing gigs, just learning a few beats here and there. I'm sure it would have been awful. Probably it sounded horrific. And I remember actually, when I was at high school, my music teacher sort of commenting about my playing, my grooves and playing sounded great, but she was like, "Oh, you should have," she recommended that I listen to a couple of particular players, and she suggested that perhaps, particularly between getting from grooves to fills and from fills back to grooves, just that transition of making all that smooth instead of sounding like kind of grooving pretty cool and then blowing it through a fill or something and then getting back to the groove and then it's good again. And then
gotcha.
So anyway, she just put a couple of things. I think it was Billy Cobham and maybe Lenny White in front of me, and so, you know, sort of those fusion guys, I guess, from that era.
So that was Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah,
Billy Cobham,
she just said Billy Cobham, and then I started looking for stuff like that he was on, and it was probably my early teens, because up to that point I didn't really have many influences except for my uncle and just what I was playing, and had to, you know, learn the songs I was playing.
Yep.
And I was doing so many other things. I was right into, you know, kind of high, I guess, well, I was playing soccer a lot.
Yep.
And surfing a lot by that stage. So that were kind of things I wanted to do. Drumming was just something that I did do.
Oh, right.
At the time, you know, my folks did at least 1, 2, sometimes 3 gigs a week. So from when I was 7, I was doing, you know, at least 2 gigs a week usually. And it was so time consuming that I didn't want to know anything more about it. All my other time was spent playing soccer or being a kid or surfing, and I guess not until I was in my mid-teens did I sort of have any real, I guess, desire to, and it was never really strong, but it was a desire to get a bit better at a few things.
Was there a moment that made you want to? Did you like see somebody play or?
Probably that time when my music teacher, Vesna Gregov, actually, that was her name. She was really great, but she introduced me to Billy Cobham basically, and then once I started looking through that, you know, that style of music, I came across many other things that were like, you know, quite inspiring at the time for me. And then I guess it progressed there till my late teens, of being interested in that sort of technical side of music, you know, lots of sort of jazz influenced stuff and Latin stuff. But I never really I never went super deep in any of those things. I was more kind of inspired by just the listening and I guess the musicality of some of the stuff, not all the stuff. But I don't consider myself like a great technical player by any means, but I've just done it for so long that people go, "Oh man, your hands are, you know, really
fluid."
And I'm like, they're like, what did you practice with? What did you study? I'm like, I didn't really practice much, man. I surfed a lot. But in saying that, my practice was playing. I did 2 or 3 gigs a week from when I'm 7 to when I finished high school. That's a lot of playing, just actual playing for a person, anyone of that age, you know. And those gigs were long gigs, like 7:30 till midnight. So a lot of the time I'd be falling asleep between the last couple of sets, and my parents would have to send out the search party to find me a lot of the time. I'd sleep under the tables or in the next door neighbour's, you know, front yard or something.
And do you have other siblings that play?
My sister was involved too.
Yep.
She was a really good, I mean, it was basically like a big Polynesian travelling show band. So we had the big floor show, Polynesian floor show.
Sorry, which side of the family is Polynesian? Yeah, your mum, okay.
Yeah, mum's from Aitutaki.
Okay.
The Cook Islands.
Yeah, Cook Islands.
My dad's Scottish.
Okay.
So he's quite a mix. But
It is mixed, yeah.
yeah, they made they sort of hammed that thing up, coconut haggis. And they were great. They were just great entertainers.
Yeah.
They still are. Still
awesome.
Still, if they walk in, they don't leave. They don't leave the house without a guitar and ukulele, even if they're going down the shops. There's always an opportunity somewhere.
That's so great.
And man, as soon as they pull those instruments out, they're the life of the party. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah.
They're the life of the party. I take them sometimes to some of my friends. Just little do's at their houses, and they're just a hit wherever they go.
Yep.
So they've been, a real inspiration for me for many years now.
Yep.
Not that I consider myself a great entertainer like them, but I guess just being, just seeing how inspired they have kept from music is, a lot of people say, "Wow, you've been doing it for so long. How do you stay inspired with it?" I'm like, it's just
in you.
It's just great.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
That could give so much joy, firstly to myself, and then secondly to others, or vice versa.
It's something you've always known.
Yeah.
Having played so young, it's all ingrained. It's in your it's in your genes now. So
and I think once you see the joy that you can give to others, that's a gift, man. And knowing how powerful music is just full stop. Whether I'm involved or not, we all know that music's a great source of joy or sadness or whatever emotions you need, you can give it to you.
You can find it in a song.
Yeah.
And you got children?
I do.
Yeah, and your children into music?
Yeah,
I saw a couple of your Instagram videos. Jam with your kids on your drums. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I've got 4 boys of varying ages, but the youngest is 2, and we've got a bit of gear set up at home, drums and keyboards and guitars and stuff. But all the young ones just seem to just love smashing the drums. Like most kids, it's that primal thing of. It's instant gratification as soon as you hit that thing.
That's right.
It's there. And you don't have to learn anything. You can just pick up the stick and smash it. But in saying that, my 10-year-old, he's getting quite good. Like I don't sit down with him and teach him one-on-one often. I just give him a few little things every so often when I think he's ready for it.
Yep.
And he just plays a lot. We go and play. So now we've actually got a kids band called Poppy Galactic and the Beat. I'm the Beat, of course, but my 10-year-old's now starting to play some of the songs on the gigs we do. So I think I'm going to try and get all the kids on the instruments eventually when the timing's right.
Great.
My wife sings and she's the front woman. She's Poppy Galactic and bringing the message. Of kind of, living a good, healthy, green life and saving the planet, because we're from another planet, or she's from another planet.
Yep.
And it's just just good messages for the kids,
It's like a modern day Partridge Family.
Kind of.
And that's not an insult at all. That's a
I've
positive.
I've had my whole life. People have referenced the Partridge Family for me and my parents' band, and and now it's coming down to my kids. So I get. Oh, and then my eldest son, who is also in the kids' band, has just finished his own recording of his first release, which I think is. I'm not sure exactly when it's out, but hopefully before the end of this year. His name's Tainui. It's amazing. His songwriting. He learnt piano, self-taught guitar and bass, and has played drums and bits and pieces of things. But his songwriting is really amazing, and particularly for someone so young. And I say that he's 23 now, but he has been writing for a long time, and he's all. Even at high school, you know, his songwriting was just super, just thoughtful, and just conscious. Great lyrics, great lines, great melodies. Just a good, really good songwriter. I think that's his calling.
Yeah.
So he's actually, I've got him, not what you know, it's who you know, but he's doing some of these Whitlams supports coming up, which is pretty cool. So that'll be his first gigs that he's done for quite some time.
As a band or solo?
He's going to do them solo, but I've convinced Tim Friedman to let the Whitlams band, minus Tim Friedman, play with my son for one of the songs on tour. So, you know, he'll play solo for most of the set, and then we'll jump up for one of his songs and make it a big...
What a buzz. That'd be a buzz for Dad.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So he's musical. They're all, they'll all have something going on. They love it. And then they come and... Before the 10-year-old was playing drums on some of the gig, they had a dance routine for a couple of the songs, so I'd get out and break dance at the front of the songs, because we're basically a dance band for kids.
Yeah.
And I've just written all the music, and my wife's written all the lyrics, so we're just kind of gluing all that stuff together, and we've got a couple of 2 songs out. One ended up on a compilation in America. With a bunch of other kids bands who it was actually on a record that was made to support the Mexican kids that were being torn away from their parents, you know, when crossing borders and that whole sort of saga that was going on for a while. So it was a fundraiser compilation album, and it's actually been nominated for a Grammy. So we've got a song on there, and
is that available on the...
I think that record is available online in Australia now.
If we can, I'll get the link off you, and I'll put it in the show notes of this podcast. And
Cool. And then there's another one that we just put one out a while back because we sort of needed to for some other reasons. But there's one song that's already you can find on Spotify and iTunes.
Yep.
But I'm still finishing the rest of the record. So again, hopefully, if I can squeeze in enough time to put some work in, then that'll also be done before the year's out.
Great.
Yeah. So to answer that initial question, all the kids are and will be more and more musical as time goes on.
Yeah, that's cool. Just roll. Sort of, we've gone back, and then we've gone up to Byron. Now we're back. We'll come back down here to Cronulla.
Yeah.
So you've gone from playing in your mum and dad's band, and then you discovered this other music and started learning that stuff. When was sort of the breakaway from your parents' band into, would I say more, was progressive the word? Let's just say, what was the next thing after your mum and dad's
sure.
band? Yeah.
Well, when I was 18, my folks left Sydney to open a business on the Gold Coast, like a kind of theatre restaurant, basically. And they asked me if I wanted to go. They didn't sort of force me to go or anything with them. I was 18. I just finished high school, and I said, I think I want to, I like playing music. I think I want to keep playing music, and I think Sydney's the place to be, not the Gold Coast.
Yeah. And
so I stayed, and at the time, I think my mid to late teens, I started having a handful of lessons with different guys who were at Andy Evans' Drumcraft. So a guy called Pete Chobo. In fact, it was just a handful of almost like one-off lessons with a bunch of different teachers there.
Yep.
And one of the teachers was this guy called Pete Chobo, who was playing in a band called Belly Dance at the time. And he was also, I think he just started playing with Jenny Morris, or got the call up to play with Jenny Morris. And I'd had a couple of lessons with him, and he said, "Oh man, you play really great. Like there's not a lot, I mean, that I can teach you, really." And I think Jenny Morris had just maybe been offered a touring spot in maybe internationally with Prince.
Oh, right.
And so Pete was going to be going on tour anyway, so he offered me this gig with Belly Dance, which was basically like a soul funk band. And I was 18 and I was like, yeah, I'm in. And so that was my first sort of band outside of school that I joined. Pretty much straight out of school, straight into that band. And then the keyboard player from that band was Scott Saunders. And he was a keyboard player and one of the founding members of D.I.G, Directions in Groove, who was about maybe 2 or 3 years later after joining Belly Dance, we started that band, D.I.G.
So you started D.I.G.
Yeah.
With it? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was we actually started it because I think it was Andy Glitterer who used to be one of the DJs on Triple J. It was around the whole time of acid jazz. Well, just when it was kind of starting to kick in. And there was a label called, I think it was actually the Acid Jazz label, or it could have been Talking Loud. One of those labels was launching here, and Andy was putting a party together for the launch and asked Scott to put a band together in that sort of thing, new acid jazz thing, which essentially was kind of sort of meshing jazz and funk really, essentially.
Bit of psychedelic and
and so Scott called myself and a few of the other members. It wasn't actually the very first gig had a different bass player and maybe a different sax player too.
What year was this?
This would have been 1990 or 90. Yeah, I think 1990 or 91.
Yep.
Maybe. Around that time anyway. So that was about the beginning of D.I.G, and that had sort of come from Belly Dance. And so D.I.G started then, and about the same time I actually auditioned for a band who were looking for a drummer they were called SWOOP. And it was funny because I'm guessing you know Lucius Borich.
I know of him.
Yeah,
Haven't talked to him yet.
Yeah, well he's one of the greatest rock drummers.
Yeah.
Well, not just rock, but he's a great rock drummer.
Yes.
Great drummer. And he and I happened to, I think we're pretty much the same age, but he and I both went for this audition with this band SWOOP at the same time. I think he was before me. I think we may have even walked past each other in the hallway not knowing each other.
Right.
Anyway, we both auditioned and they couldn't decide who to give the gig to, so we both got the gig apparently. I don't remember this, but I think apparently we did it. We did a couple.
You shared the gigs or something?
Yeah, no, well we did double drummers.
Oh, double drummers,
yeah.
Wicked.
But we were both like 19 or 20 at the time, something like that. So pretty young, and they were just more like a crazy funk. It was pretty much funk back then, and then it morphed over the years into more of a funk rock kind of thing. But that was another band that sort of in those early years was formed, or not formed, but sort of that started growing at the time. So Belly Dance, D.I.G, SWOOP, and then from those, sort of playing regularly a lot with those three bands, I started getting opportunities to do other things as well. So I guess, I really ended up far out playing tons. Every week, just probably anywhere from 4 or 5 gigs up to 10, 12 gigs a week.
With different people.
Yeah, and then getting calls to do other little things, other little jazz gigs or other one-off things, and then started getting some sessions, and it just ended up, sort of progressing quite naturally over time.
And this is early 90s, mid 90s.
Yeah, early 90s, and then just through that next sort of 5-year period of just being super busy with different things, particularly sessions, and then also started touring a lot, internationally as well.
And who was that with?
A lot of that early international stuff was with D.I.G.
Oh, yeah.
Off each of the records that we put out, we ended up touring overseas.
Awesome.
Mostly in Europe. And then, sort of splitting my time between playing live and lots of studio stuff that started coming in when there was still lots of drummers being used on records.
Budgets and
budgets. Yeah. There was still budgets for that stuff.
Yeah.
For real drummers.
Yeah.
Lots of records. Back in those days. One of the craziest ones that I did that at the time, no one really believed in their music or their songwriting at the time, but it was that band Savage Garden, and I think everyone just thought it was a joke at the time,
right.
But everyone except for them and John Woodruff, their manager, and I think apparently they presented it to all the labels and no one was interested.
Yep.
And John Woodruff, their manager at the time, was just right into it, believed it. I think he even mortgaged his house to pay the bills on making the record. And then, next minute, they're selling millions all around the world.
Yeah, so which album did you play on? Was that the one?
I just did the first record.
First record, yeah.
Yeah.
You played that whole thing?
No, I think I did about 5 or 6 tracks on that record.
Yep.
And then, I remember maybe Gordon Rittmeister did a few.
Okay.
And then some of it might have been, I think some was programmed as well.
Yeah.
And then I did a little bit of other stuff with them over the years, but not a lot.
Yep.
Never toured with them live or anything.
Yep.
But,
did you ever get offered that touring?
No, I don't recall. I remember, I think it's... One story that does stick in my head is that the guy who did do all the early touring was one of their friends from, whatever bands or schooling they'd had, that they'd said, whenever we get big, you'll be our drummer. And
right.
I think that's, from memory, that was a story that sticks in my head about it, but I might be wrong.
Right.
Might have made that up to justify my own...
Not getting
not getting
So that was Carl Lewis, right?
Yeah.
I saw them play at the closing ceremony of the Olympics.
Oh yeah, cool.
And then went and saw them at the entertainment centre, and wow, man, what a great show.
Yeah, cool. I think that's the thing about them, is that they're entertainers.
Yeah.
And they put on a show.
They're one of the first bands, apart from sort of Pink Floyd and that sort of thing, to bring LED lighting into the stage.
Right.
And it was it was incredible. It was great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So let's talk a little bit more about those sort of session days compared to how they are now. Are you still getting sessions now?
I still do the odd session, nowhere near as much as those days, but I'm also living in a small rural area on a little farm, so not that that's any excuse that I shouldn't be doing them or aren't doing more sessions, because I tell you what, there's an awful lot of recording studios in Byron Bay, and there's a lot of people that come to Byron Bay to record, so there's stuff there. I'm still doing sessions, but like as I said, just not like the old days where we'd be doing like a different album every couple of weeks, with different people. So I did recently do an album, or Xavier Rudd, do you know? Yeah, so Xavier Rudd's just finished an album, I think, which was released early this year, early 2018. Called Stormboy, and I did all the drums for that, and I did get offered that tour, but it actually clashed with something else I had in America at the time. I spent a few months in America earlier this year doing a few things, and the dates unfortunately clashed a little, And I also, for the first time in my life, had actually thought about not touring as much anyway.
Okay.
And Xavier's touring schedule was super, super busy, really hectic, like
Okay.
more than I think I want to do these days, you know.
Yep.
Having four
Yep.
kids at home, you know, leaving them for a weekend now is tough, you know. Leaving them for a week is really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving them for a month or two is just, you know, it's painful, you know, and I've never in the past really felt that way as much as I do these days. So it's the first time I've really started consciously thinking of saying no to gigs, touring, particularly big sort of, you know, a big touring gig like that.
Yeah.
Because they've just this year they've done, you know, I think they did 2 months in America, 2 and a bit months in Europe,
Right.
Couple of months in Australia.
Yep.
With not much time off in between moving around, you know, like to different regions.
Mm.
So I just, to be away for those kind of blocks of time these days, just, I think while my kids are young, I don't want to miss that amount of
I
time.
know exactly what you mean.
You know, being away, that's 6 months in itself, and there's still more dates on the on the books. So
Also, when you're making those decisions, are you looking at what you could be doing as well?
Yes,
from a financial point of view.
That's right.
To make sure you're set.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing you've got to weigh up, like, you know, feeling good about the choices you're making for your own well-being, but also for your family's well-being.
That's right.
And financially.
Yeah.
And just, you know,
just that balance.
The balance, and it's different for everybody.
Yep.
Some people don't need to make lots of money. Some people do need to make lots of money. Some people don't have kids, so decisions are, you know, some people have lots of kids, or some people don't have kids and don't want to be away. Like, it's just different for everybody. So.
And do you ever worry that, you know, these gigs and tours and stuff that you're turning away, that you may not be asked to do other stuff? Is that always in the back of your mind, or are you pretty...
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I'm not too fast, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of touring over the years with lots and lots of people, and a lot of the touring that I've done have been fairly kind of back to back. So, I mean, I guess since probably since even before then, since '99, when I joined the Whitlams, who were touring, who I just played on that record in '99, Love This City, and then I wasn't in the band. I just did that as a session back in those days. At about that time, D.I.G was sort of wrapping up, which was one of my main things that I was doing. Mm-hmm. And Tim Friedman from the Whitlams said, "Oh, well, you know, if you're not going to be that busy, do you want to tour this record with me?" And I was like, "Well, probably time for a change, you know." And it was a perfect change for me at the time, to be honest. It got me away from, I guess, playing. D.I.G wasn't overly self-indulgent musically, but there was definitely aspects of that, you know. And I felt a little bit ready to not be self-indulgent music, you know, as a drummer. Yeah. And playing in a band like the Whitlams was pretty much the opposite. To a certain extent, you know. Playing very simple grooves and but getting back to the core of what I'd learnt as a kid, which was to play the music, play the songs.
Make it feel as good as it can.
Yeah. And so I joined the Whitlams in '99 to do that tour, and I'm still in the band. So, and over the years, you know, we've taken quite extensive breaks, which have allowed me to do other things. I've had to miss a few Whitlams shows here and there, to be able to, you know, commit to some other things. So during that period, I mean, in the early days of the Whitlams that I toured, we toured a lot overseas. a lot in Australia, and then we'd take breaks. And I think, in one of the years when we were taking a break, I ended up joining Missy Higgins' band.
I was going to ask you about, because that's the first time I saw you or knew of you.
Yeah, right.
I've probably heard you 1,000 times on radio and stuff, but I remember watching Earth Hour.
Oh yeah, okay.
Concert.
Yep, cool.
Sitting at home that night and watching it.
Yeah.
And watching you playing.
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
Oh, cool, man. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
It's great, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. That was a fun gig, actually, Earth Hours, and she's such a beautiful person, and I loved touring with her. And
did you play on her records?
I played on a few recordings, not the whole records. By the time I joined her band, she was sort of...
She's pretty starting to get established, eh?
Yeah, and she'd just done... What did she do? I think she just finished an album in America and had used a bunch of those kind of heavyweight LA, or the session cats over there.
Yep.
And that was an album that was already finished when I had just joined the band, and so she put an Australian band to tour that record.
Yep.
And then, so that was maybe about 4 years of touring with her.
Yep.
Pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Like almost a couple of years here touring, lots of cycles of this country, and then we went to America a lot. She lived in LA for a while, and so we did about almost a year's worth of touring over there. Mm-hmm. In big, sort of 4 weeks to 8 weeks, those kind of blocks, and then took a bit of time off, and another 4, 6 or 8 weeks, and then time off. So did that for quite a while, and then there's some recording and stuff that we did with her, and the next record came out, which I think I can't even remember. I think she also did with the LA guys.
Yeah. Just on the LA stuff, because so you just quickly going back to the Savage Garden thing. So you play on the first album, and then what was it? Their sort of breakthrough album.
Yeah.
They used the session guys, didn't they?
Yeah. So
it's produced by those big session guys.
Yeah.
You just got all the
guns
in there. Yeah,
that's
Steve
it.
Smith and
So I think that's what happens a lot, man. And
so were you considered at all?
I've got no idea. Different producer, different everything, and I think quite often in those situations, the producer has a lot of kind of. I mean, if you're going to the top end of producers, they usually have their own A-team that they would, as their preference for playing.
Gotcha.
Unless the band is a band.
Yep.
If it's a singer, if it's a songwriter that needs a band, then and the producers, got any say in it, they usually just go straight to their guys.
Yep.
And that's actually how I ended up on a few other records. Through the producer that did the Savage Garden record that I did play on.
Yep.
His name's Charles Fisher, and he and I established a pretty cool relationship. I've probably owe him at least a shot of whiskey sometime. But he has put my hand up for a bunch of records over the years, and I've ended up on a few of them. Which have been really nice. One of them was a Canadian band. Not long after the Savage Garden thing, ended up on a whole nother album for this band, Soul Decision, which they didn't get. I don't think they got hardly any airplay in Australia, but they had a #1 single in the US and Canada, and it wasn't as big as the Savage Garden thing, but it was still a pretty giant record. So I did that album here with Charles, and that went really well, but they also toured their Canadian band over there, which wasn't a problem for me at the time. I was so busy anyway. I didn't feel like, I did the recording, why don't they ask me to tour, blah, blah. But then their next album, they asked me to come to Canada and record it and be in the band and tour, and so I did actually go there for a number of months and finished the album. Actually, finished half the album because who was producing? Nile Rodgers was producing that album, and Omar Hakim had played on probably half the record,
Right.
and then I got a call up to come and play on the other half of the record, so which was pretty.
Cool.
It's kind of like, it was pretty big boots to kind of finish, to jump into to finish the album off.
Yeah. Did you know that at the time though?
Yeah, I did, and I did.
They trying to scare you, eh?
Oh man, we got Omar Hakim on the
Have you heard of him? You know, he's pretty fucking good. You know, you got to step up, man.
Yeah. So that I did feel a little bit like that, but when it's funny when you're in the room with people. We're all the same. We're all the same.
That's it.
Everyone's just people. Everyone's just,
Yeah.
It's not that. It can be intimidating, but I found it quite enjoyable, that experience, being in the room with those fellas at that time. And then we toured that record, and it didn't really do as well as the first one, but it was a great experience to have, and it was a good. It's a good time with some great fellas that I'm, lifelong friends with, and still keep in touch with. Did some videos with them and a whole bunch of cool stuff in Canada, and did a bunch of touring there, and had some great times. And then the album didn't go so well, so I ended up back in Australia and doing. I think that was maybe around the time when, I can't remember if that was. I think that was after Missy Higgins stuff, and then.
Oh, okay. I was going to say what happened.
I think the timeline was maybe something like that. Missy Higgins and Soul Decision, and then coming home and maybe doing some more Whitlam stuff, and then I think Pete Murray was looking for a drummer at the time or a new band, and so I ended up in his band touring with him for a couple of years, and again, it's the sort of in Australia. The amount of touring you can do is kind of limited, so a lot of the times you'll be on the road for a month or something, and then there'll be a break. And my diary was just this. It was like I may as well have been in a circus, just juggling dates everywhere.
Right.
And I remember I've still got some of those diaries, and I look back just on the odd occasion when I sort of spot some old diaries or whatever, and just look through the books, and there's just so many dates and times and things of different.
Would have been a bit harder to sort of juggle that stuff back in the day without the internet and digital calendars. And
I didn't even get a mobile phone until not that long ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or in the scheme of things, people who had mobile phones for about probably 20 years before I got one.
Yeah. Because you're not that active on the social media type.
Not
thing.
really. No, I don't really do any.
Good on you for that. Cause
I don't really do
sucks you in, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Instagram. That's it.
Yeah,
and I, it's not really based on my music or anything. It's just kind of a little mishmash of
it's cool,
whatever's happening, and I don't feel any urge to keep posting stuff or looking at stuff. I find of course you do pick your phone up at times and just endlessly flick through
that's it.
things, but there's so many other cool things to do rather than sit there with the phone in your hand. But then, I guess the nature of being a musician and a touring artist, you're on the road, and there is plenty of downtime where flicking through the phone is all you've got, or
you could go for a surf,
or like now, like today, I got up early and had a surf. But not a big social media kind of guy.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No, good on you for that.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, so after Pete Murray, what happened there?
Yeah, Pete Murray touring.
Sorry, are you still in Cronulla at this stage?
So I moved to Byron about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And that was really to, I think we were, so I had 3 boys then, and I don't know if the youngest one was on his way or... Well, he was definitely on his way. I just don't know how far he'd somewhere. But I just got a bit sick of Sydney. I still love it. I wasn't sick of Sydney itself. Just kind of the busyness,
it's getting worse too.
The pace of it.
It's getting worse.
The air, it's still amazing air quality, but I just wanted to be away from even the idea of living in a city and air pollution and the amount of cars, the amount of people, just the amount of everything going on. Like even this morning, for example, like I grew up, you know, in this area in Cronulla and surfing these beaches, and I probably was driving down the road at about 8 o'clock, and the whole stretch of Cronulla could not find one parking spot.
At 8 o'clock this morning?
8 o'clock in the morning. Not one spot. Had to double park in front of a bunch of cars and wait for probably half an hour to get a spot. It was like, it was unbelievable. I just couldn't understand why it was so busy, and but it was a great reminder of why, just one of the little reasons that I got away from this area, you know.
Oh shit, sorry.
No, that's all right.
It's supposed to be on silent. It's on professional. Total professional.
Professional.
Yeah, professional. It's a good...
So yeah, just a little reminder, a little nudge to say, oh, you know, this is why you got out of here. Because, you know, you can't... There's just not one parking spot. Hardly any space on the beach. Admittedly, it was a day for... I think it was a special event, being the 11-11-11 thing. So,
the Remembrance Day.
Yeah, Remembrance Day. And it was also, I think they'd incorporated that into some of the beach activities for the nippers and the lifesavers and things. Okay. So it was particularly busy. Yep. But when I spoke, you know, I got in the surf and had some friends in the surf and just chatting away, and they're like, oh man, it doesn't matter if there's a special event on or not, it's like this every weekend, like just crazy busy. And there's a lot of housing development going on in Cronulla area, and it's you can see it just blowing up in terms of the population, and it's kind of I guess the road's not quite coping, and the amount of parking and
I'm way up the street.
Yeah, right.
I was sort of backed up to turn right into Croydon. Yeah. I was going to go and park down there. Usually I park around there from playing gigs. You know.
Yeah.
It was just backed all the way up, and people trying to turn right, it was all backed. And then I just sort of looked to my left. Oh,
no.
Straight in, kind of backed in there. And
yeah,
sweet.
nice.
Yeah, a little 5-minute walk down the road. Sweet as it.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's good. But yeah, so anyway, it's getting busy down here, and that was one of the reasons that wanted to get away and give my boys a bit of an opportunity to see
that's cool,
life outside of all that pace. You know.
Yep.
We ended up we've got a little farm up where we live now, and it's our boundary around the farm is really super cool creek around 3 sides of our property. Main road's a dirt road at our place, and got 2 neighbours that live up the hill, and I can't see them. Can't see the neighbours. They're about a kilometre away. So so yeah, you know, we wake up and look out the doors, and there's just trees, and it's all green outside our doors.
Yeah.
You hear wildlife, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's so...
Yeah, a friend of mine's done the move up to Byron. They used to live on the northern beaches, and he quite often posts on his Instagram. It's incredible. They open their doors in the morning, and it's just all green. The kids are running around out there.
Yeah.
Envious, man.
Yeah. It's great. I'm loving it, and I'm loving giving the kids that opportunity, and actually being able to share it with them. You know, like not. All right, here you go. We've moved to Byron Bay, and I'm going on tour. See ya.
Yeah.
But now, being able to actually sit there or hang around and enjoy it, we've got a few projects going, like put in a flying fox for the boys, made a couple of skate half pipe.
Coming to stay at your house.
Yeah. Well, I'm just about to finish the tree house, which has just become more like a 5-star resort.
Sweet.
Overhanging the creek, which is. It's actually beautiful, man. Awesome. The boys have got the best real estate on the property, actually, where the treehouse is. So, just cool things like that, you know, putting rope swings over the creek.
Yeah.
Just, I mow a soccer field into part of our garden, which is, not many people can say they got a soccer field in their backyard.
Yeah.
But things like that, you know,
everything.
Space, the kids have got it all.
Yeah, well, you've got it all. Yeah, definitely.
It's so great.
Yeah.
So that was that's what I moved away from Sydney for, really.
Yep.
And it was about 3 years ago. It was to get the kids some, I guess perspective on life. You know, planting lots of food trees and trying to get the veggies going, but there's a bit of maintenance involved with keeping a good veggie garden going. Just teaching the kids, you know, how to think about the planet, about nature, about where food comes from. It doesn't actually, meat's not born as a piece of thing in a plastic. It's actually that cow there. You know, when you want steak or sausages. It starts like that guy, and all our neighbours have got sheep and cows and goats, and we get plenty of snakes. Actually, freshwater crayfish in our creek, freshwater mussels, eels, fish. There's all turtles, all the stuff's there, you know. So it's so great for the boys to be able to see that stuff. And some mornings wake up and there'll be a bunch of kangaroos on the oval kicking the ball around.
That's magic.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Had actually our first or second. I didn't see the first one, but had a koala the other day, just on one of the trees next to the house. I knew it was there because the dog was going crazy, actually. So just even those opportunities, you know, for the kids to see animals in nature and, you know, not in captivity or something, you know, where it's, I think it's almost more real when you see them. I mean, it is real.
Of course, but in your own backyard.
They
can take ownership of them even.
That's it.
Our pets.
A
koala and a pet turtle. And
totally. Yeah. So that's been great to be able to give them that opportunity. And I reckon the Pete Murray thing sort of wound up a little while back. He did a tour, I think, like a 20th or some sort of anniversary of, I think, his first album, and ended up using that same band that did all that, the first album and first bunch of touring and toured that. And then I didn't really go back to the band after that. He ended up using some other players. But I actually, over that whole period of time, probably the past 10 years or so, I'd also been playing with Guy Sebastian. So that was a thing that was sort of on and off, because a lot of his touring would be his big tours would only be sort of 4 weeks long, and maybe with a couple of additional weeks of regional sort of stuff. And that would be it for a year. And then a lot of his work would be more sort of corporate type shows where just because of his profile, he would get that style of gig. So a lot of them would be sort of mid-year or late in the year corporate stuff, you know, parties, big functions for big companies and things like that. So it wasn't always a lot of touring, so it's been on and off with him.
Did you used to come in for that corporate stuff?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, so I used to do, all of it. Up until probably about a year ago, I think. Or maybe even the start of this year. I think I was in America and he was starting a tour here. And another, one of my favourite drummers, Andy Fissenden, he was doing that tour when I was away with Guy. Or when I was away, Andy did the tour with Guy. And has been doing it pretty much ever since.
Right,
so,
okay.
Yeah. Maybe I was away. I think I was maybe away with Rodriguez and some dates clashed. I can't remember. Anyway, I was doing some Rodriguez touring as well. Last year overseas, in Australia first and then overseas in America. Spent a bunch of time there with him. And I think that was maybe where there was some clashing stuff with Guy. Guys, some guys kind of got an A team, B team, C team, D team. I think because his work's so sporadic, you know, quite often players will be already on a tour for a month or something and can't commit to a one-off show with Guy or something. So just because of the nature of his touring, really, he's had to have multiple players in place that can cover do the gig.
Sure.
So at the moment I'm not committed in any sort of bands at the moment.
Yep.
Which kind of feels good.
Yeah.
Feels like it's a really big open door to focus a bit more on the kids band that my wife and I have going.
Yeah.
And a perfect opportunity too now. Like just reasonable amount of time to be able to put into it, and we've started doing gigs. We played at Splendor this year.
Fantastic.
There's a little kids area in there called Little Splendor. And so the past 2 years actually we've done it, and it's been amazing, really great, good vibes. And then we just a handful of other shows here and there. We haven't really been hitting it hard because we want to have the album finished before we start sort of really getting out there and promoting it and doing heaps of stuff. But there is, we're getting there, getting close with that thing. And then I've been helping my son, played a bit of drums on some of his record.
Yep.
Little bit of sort of semi-co-producing for that.
Do you play any other instruments? Sorry?
Little bit of guitar,
yep.
A little bit of keys, but not a lot,
yep.
but enough to sort of be able to write
yep.
stuff with.
Yep.
Yeah. So, enough to get a few things over the line.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
And then we've got a little studio set up at home, so we can do whatever.
That's cool.
That's the beauty, I guess, of home recording is, even if you're not great at something, you can manipulate it so much these days that
absolutely
you don't actually have to be great at some things to be able to do them.
Yep.
Or make them sound good.
Just on that quickly, do you find, have you sort of, the stuff that you've played on, like albums and stuff, have you sort of heard the final product and go, it doesn't really sound anything like the way I played it?
Oh, always.
Oh, really? Yeah. It strikes me as you'd be the kind of player that hire because they want that sound.
Yeah. I'm pretty critical of myself, as probably most people are, in music. To the point where I just won't listen to anything that I've played on if I don't dig it. Sometimes it's just the song I don't like, and perhaps not the drumming that I wasn't into. It was maybe just, I've played on plenty of albums where it's just a gig really for me. And then
it comes back to what you said really early on in this, is about, songs and music being about a feeling and an emotion.
Yeah.
So maybe at the time you didn't dig it, so why relive it?
Yeah. Well, I sometimes, like I've even played on albums that I'm like, as soon as I'm finished the session, that's it. It's out of my head. I've never heard the recordings. I've never seen the recordings.
Yeah.
I don't own the recordings. I've never listened back to them or anything. I'm just out of the room, and that's it. And I reckon there's tons of them out there that I've ended up doing that way. Sometimes not because I wouldn't like a copy or like to listen back. Sometimes because I just forget that I did it and never. Like I've often been, over the years, just sort of been driving along and thinking, geez, that sounds like my drumming, or the song even sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wouldn't even know. Like I sometimes think, is that me playing? And then, maybe at the end of the song, if the artist is announced and they say a name, I'm like, oh yeah, I think that is me. I did play on that record. And that's happened a bunch of times actually. When I guess because I'm not, the memory of the song is kind of there. The drumming sounds familiar, but I have never had a copy. And you spend a day or two in a studio, and that's it.
Yeah,
it's not something that's sort of a strong thing in my head. If it's really good, I usually try to get a copy, or if it's, I just try to get a copy anyway, but I've got tons of albums at home in a suitcase that I've played on.
Right.
And just every so often, just more through curiosity, I just will put them on and have a listen to what I was sounding like.
Yeah, of course.
And what, try to relive what I might have been thinking playing that way. Mostly I like the recordings where I was produced, so in terms of what I was playing, because I think when I was younger, I used to go into the room, in a studio room, with the concept that more is better, not less is more. Or
Billy Cobham.
Well, yeah. I used to think that I needed to try and get all my stuff out.
Yep.
You know, put all the fancy stuff on the table straight away. And I just remember over years and years of doing sessions, just every time I'd go in, I'd start with the concept of less is more, but I started at the very beginning with more is more, and then just over the course of 10 years of doing sessions, I got to the end of sort of, 5, 6, 7 years 8 years of playing sessions, and I would go in and not even set up the drums yet until I would hear the song and go, oh, it just needs kick, snare and hats. So I wouldn't even set up the rest of the drums,
So going back to you come and playing as much as you can.
Set up my biggest kit, play it all.
Is that so the producer can start whittling it down?
I guess so. I've
got all this. What do you want?
A little bit of that. I would definitely have in my head that I was a fancy drummer. In my head, I was a fancy drummer. and I think, I'd try to play my fanciest grooves that I thought might suit the song.
Yep.
But a lot of the sessions I was doing they didn't need that. I thought they did and they didn't.
Yep.
And that's what I mean. I think that some of the best results came from producers sort of, whittling my, the amount of stuff that I was playing down to just the core of what was needed.
And then all of a sudden you realise, they're calling me for that.
Yeah. And Charles Fisher was good at that, actually. He was just like, wow, you're killing it, doing all, like, you're playing all the parts and it sounds amazing. But I think we just really want it to be, this one simple thing.
Yep.
And then I'd end up just kind of stripping it right back and just playing, taking 16th hats away, playing quarter note hats or eighth notes hats at the most for nearly all the recordings that I would ever do, unless it really required a 16th. But I often find, unless it's really a specific groove, that I really try to get as good a result, if not a better result, by playing as little as I possibly can, to get the essence of what the feeling of the song is.
I hope you young kids are listening to this. This is gospel here.
Yeah, listen, well, it really is.
It really is.
It really is. I would just take away everything. Like I'd be doing stuff like not even playing hats, and playing, or just hinting at the one hi-hat beat that needed to be there per bar, and wherever that placement is the spot that it is, and it's there. I guess a lot of the recordings that I did, I tried to make the drums, and I still sort of have this concept. I try to make the drums sound like a bit like it has been programmed.
Yeah.
But it will never sound like it's programmed because you're playing real drums. And I guess the essence of, or the nature of acoustic drumming, or drums themselves, there's just so many different nuances within the drums and the hats and the sticking and the stuff that, I mean, it's not impossible, but it's tricky to make it sound like a machine.
Yeah.
And when I say machine, like I just mean, I guess, timing wise and you can still, what I try to do is still make things have a feeling, like feel. I don't mean, when I say machine, I don't mean for every note to be precisely on the beat that it's supposed to be on. I mean for,
on the grid, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean for the create the groove. So create the groove that you want, and have that 1 or 2 bar groove, however long your groove is, that's the core of the feel. Have that be the thing that repeats like a machine.
Gotcha.
You know, so
Yep.
it might be a super lazy groove and sloppy as all hell, but but it's the same the next bar. And wherever it's sloppy on bar 1, it's sloppy on bar 2.
Gotcha.
Sloppy on bar 3.
Phrasing,
sloppy on bar 4.
Phrasing.
So it's the phrasing there, and that's what I mean. Like you know, it can still sound. It's going to sound like a real drum or real drummer, but it's got that repetitive kind of hypnotic machine like feeling, almost like a loop, really, like a live loop sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's been something that has been quite strong in the way I try to approach the drums, and sometimes to the point where I actually do want it to sound like a machine, and I will play it super precise and super, you know, try to hit this exact same spot on the snare every time I hit the snare, same spot on the hi-hat, same weight on the hi-hat, same weight on the snare, just everything very, as if you just press play on a 808 or something, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I do go for sometimes, and it's a really interesting way to approach the drums, I think, and that was another thing that when I think about it now, it was something that also made me change the way I do fills. Thinking like a machine and not like a drummer. I mean, that's a pretty broad sentence, but in terms of, instead of getting to the end of a verse or a chorus or whatever and thinking, okay, here comes a fill, here comes an opportunity to do a fill, thinking about what you're going to do, and then crash into the next section. What would I do if I was a drum machine? Well, it depends on the drum machine, and depends on whether it has been programmed or not. But someone who doesn't know much about drumming might just stop the drum machine and then restart it.
Yeah.
So I'd start thinking along those sort of lines, where trying to think more like a non-drummer, like someone who doesn't know anything about drumming or drum programming, and thinking about what would they do.
Maybe not hit that crash on the one.
No crash.
Yeah, no crash.
No fill.
No fill. Yeah.
Fill after where you would have filled. Just thinking outside the box, or filling into where you would normally put a fill.
Yeah.
And having space in the regular fill spot. Or just crashing into a fill and having space, no fill, straight back in on to the next part with no crashes.
Yeah.
Just things a little bit outside the box of what probably your sort of standard drumming expectations might be for those things, and as I mentioned before, just even with the feels as well as the feels, seeing how far I could go with playing as little as I could, but getting equally as cool a feeling, if not better. You know, like how much can I actually take away?
Yeah.
And have it still sound like, you know, amazing. Gotcha. And it's man, silence is powerful.
Absolutely.
It's so powerful. I learnt that, as I started experimenting more with it.
Sometimes it's the space between the notes.
It really is. Yeah. That is. Yeah, it's gold. That's real estate.
Yeah, absolutely.
The real estate in between those dots.
Yeah.
It's gold, and I still, even to this day, I love just stopping in weird places during songs where sometimes it doesn't always work, because, you know, if you've got to have players who are kind of on the same wavelength. Sometimes you've got guys who just sort of follow you too much, or don't follow you enough, or don't know what the heck you're doing, stopping in this weird spot just to have a, what are you doing? Like stopping? Not getting the concept or being, just not being on the same page, I suppose. But so it doesn't always work, but when it does work, it's it's the best. It's the bomb.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tonight's gig with Daniel and Adam, what sort of music?
Don't know yet. I've never
cool.
played with Daniel, so
you haven't? Okay,
no,
yeah.
It's a bit of a jam.
Awesome.
It'll be, I'm guessing, kind of it's only trio, so it'll be pretty simple sound.
Yep.
Maybe a bit of a mix of soul, reggae, funk, kind of dance vibes.
And they're a couple of monsters, man. Adam and Daniel.
Yeah.
Fantastic players.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I haven't played with Adam for a while because.
Because you did the Guy Sebastian thing?
Yeah, Adam was doing it for most of the time that I was playing with Guy. Or pretty much all the time that I was playing with Guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's maybe still doing it, maybe on and off a little bit.
Okay.
But I haven't, since I moved to Byron, I used to play with Adam a lot, and I haven't played with him much lately, so he's actually canned another gig tonight to come hang out with me.
Yeah, cool.
So, pretty wrapped with that.
That's good, eh? Yeah.
Should be fun. We usually have fun at this joint.
Okay.
So, looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah.
I think on that note, Terepai Richmond, thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, pleasure. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. Awesome. Loved it.
Cheers, Fred.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.